Welcome to Ideas That Inspire, where uplifting stories spark hope, inspire change, and remind us that we all have the power to make a difference. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the Ideas That Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Emily, and today we're diving into something so many of us silently struggle with: sleep. I've had sleep issues most of my life, and I know how confusing and overwhelming the sleep industry can feel. After trying what felt like everything to improve my sleep, I came across sleep therapist Kate Blyth and decided to invest in her sleep reset program. Now I wake up feeling rested and so grateful for falling asleep easily and sleeping through the night. Something I wasn't sure would ever be possible for me. So, of course, I just had to bring her on the podcast. As creative entrepreneurs and business owners, sleep affects everything: our energy, focus, mood, and how we show up in our work and life. When we're not sleeping well, it's harder to think clearly, stay motivated, or make good decisions. But as you'll hear in this conversation, there is hope. And it might be a lot simpler than you think. Kate takes a compassionate, evidence-based approach to sleep therapy, shaped by her own journey through chronic insomnia. She explains how sleep is an innate process our bodies are designed to regulate, and why understanding your sleep drive and circadian rhythm is the key to getting consistent quality rest. After years of learning about sleep, I was still surprised by what I learned from Kate, like how good sleep actually starts in the morning, and how natural light and daily routines set the foundation for better rest. She also explains why learning to be okay with wakefulness can lead to more reliable sleep, and how letting go of sleep anxiety can make all the difference. If sleep has ever felt like a struggle for you, you're not alone. Here's my encouraging conversation with Kate. Welcome to the show, Kate. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to talk to me today.
Thanks for having me.
To begin, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, your business, and what you do.
Yeah, sure. My name's Kate Blyth, sleep therapist. My company's called Intuitive Sleep, and I specialise in helping people dismantle chronic insomnia.
Thanks for sharing about what you do, Kate. To help the community get to know you a little better, can you share your cultural background and how where you grew up shaped who you are today?
I grew up in Auckland, got 2 siblings, and I have a really supportive family, had a great upbringing. I moved to Wanaka 7 years ago, and I've got 3 kids of my own.
Beautiful. So I want to let the audience know that I actually worked with Kate last year to help with my own chronic insomnia, and I will be forever grateful for how she helped me. I can fall asleep easily now and enjoy a full night's sleep, which is a reality that I never thought would be possible for me. And I know that you also had your own struggle with chronic insomnia, Kate. Can you share more about that with us now?
Yeah, sure. So that's what got me into this whole field and why I'm so passionate about sleep. I actually, when I look back, realised that I'd struggled with sleep since I was a little girl. So I can remember quite vividly nights when I would be the only one in the house awake and thinking, oh, even my parents are asleep now. And I think that fear really stuck with me at quite a subconscious level, because I wouldn't say I had chronic insomnia from that age, but I think that's when the fear started. And so that was always under the surface. And I probably was maybe just a sensitive sleeper, and then up until my probably mid-30s, it started getting worse and getting into more of a pattern. And was probably around a time that I had a lot of stressful life events all happening at once that my sleep got really, really bad. The first night that I can remember sort of starting and where it became a very vicious cycle was one night where I felt like I didn't sleep the whole night. So the sun came up in the morning, and it shook me to the core that that could happen, because up until then, sometimes I might take a while to go to sleep, but I hadn't ever had a night that I had been awake the whole night. And that really freaked me out. I thought, well, of course, the next night I'd probably sleep well, but because of that fear was just so strong, the next night I didn't sleep well. And from there, it really started to get a lot worse. Probably over a period of a few years, that continued. Obviously, with chronic insomnia, it isn't every single night. The definition of having chronic insomnia is struggling with sleep for longer than, say, 3 months, and you only need to have 3 nights a week struggling with sleep. So I think a lot of people perhaps don't label themselves as having insomnia because they think, oh, I don't have that. I don't struggle with sleep every single night. But the definition is it's not every night because the sleep drive kicks in and we have some nights that we sleep a bit better and then there's natural variation.
I can totally relate to having nights that you feel like you don't sleep at all and then worrying about that. And I also didn't really label myself as having insomnia because I did get some sleep. I sort of thought it was more not being able to sleep at all the time.
Yeah, I think that's quite common. And it's a scary sounding word too. Oh, insomnia, But really it's just struggling to fall asleep or struggling to maintain sleep. There's different flavours of insomnia. So some people struggle more with the getting to sleep. Some people have lots of frequent nighttime wakings or fragmentation or just waking quite early in the morning or all of the above. And also sometimes it can just show up as poor quality sleep, so not feeling refreshed by the sleep you have because it's very light and poor quality. It's also associated with the daytime consequences, so struggling with brain fog and energy levels and all those things.
Thank you for sharing a bit more about what insomnia actually is and what it looks like and how it can show up differently for different people. I remember before working with you, I had tried so many different things to improve my sleep, from supplements to meditation to no screen before bedtime and various different evening routines, but nothing ever helped. And I just had that story that I was a bad sleeper. And one thing that you taught me that I had never heard before was that sleep is actually an innate process of the body. Can you share more about what this means and what a normal night of sleep actually looks like? Because that was something else that you taught me about what to expect for a normal night of sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like you and a lot of people with chronic insomnia. And it's natural when you're struggling with sleep and the days are so hard that it's something that you feel like you need to solve pretty urgently because it's hard to function. And so you do tend to look for how to fix it. So it resonated with me what you were saying about having tried so many different things. I feel like if there's something for sleep that I have tried it. So I had a herbal supplement cupboard overflowing and I tried natural therapies and sleeping tablets, hypnosis, meditation, yoga. So similar to you.
The list goes on.
The list goes on. And interestingly enough, a lot of these things actually put more pressure on sleep itself, almost a bit like performance anxiety. So this is more effort and that's driving that problem. But going back to sleep being an innate drive and ability, this is why I've called my business Intuitive Sleep, because I want to help people get back to trusting the body's ability to organize sleep for you. It's a passive process, something that if we shine a torch on it, it runs away. So it's elusive when we put a lot of pressure or focus on that naturally passive process. And yes, we do have an innate sleep drive. It comes from this physiological two main systems, really. And we would have talked about this a lot in our sessions. So we've got the sleep drive, or I like to call it sleep hunger. And then we've got the circadian rhythm or the body clock. So these two main sleep processes. And those are two things that are separate systems, but they work when they're both strong and timed well. They work together to support each other. And it's part of our biology that we can't lose. It's a bit like digestion or breathing. We couldn't live very long without sleep. It's homeostatically controlled, which means it's a self-regulating system. And if you went for days and days and days on end, at some point you would probably fall asleep sitting up because your body can't function without sleep. So even if we override that by being really stressed about not sleeping, at some point we would sleep. So what those two systems are, one is hunger, like I said, and the other one is body clock. So sleep hunger, every cell in our body has mitochondria, which is that powerhouse of the cell making energy, and a byproduct of making energy is a metabolite called adenosine. So this builds up during the day, and the longer it builds up in the brain, so the longer we're awake, the more sort of adenosine that would be in the brain, which makes us feel sleepy. So I found when I started learning all of this information myself that it gave me a lot of trust in my body's ability, because I knew that sleep wasn't something that I could lose. If you're awake, if you're exercising, if you're moving, adenosine is building up in your system, and it's not something that you can lose. Sure, you can override it if you're really stressed and you've got a really high state of hyperarousal, can mask that sleepiness to a point, but it's not something that you can lose. So yeah, that really helped me firstly just start rebuilding my trust in sleep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed learning about that from you as well. Again, it was something else that I'd not come across in all my sleep research over the years.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because the two main systems that we understand to regulate sleep, it is definitely becoming more widely understood. But still, I feel that out there in the world and on social media, and when you Google 10 top sleep tips, that often what comes up is sleep hygiene, sleep supplements, these sorts of things, which are really focusing on the minors, not the majors, and actually can put more pressure on sleep itself. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing about that innate process of sleep and how we are building up to have a good night's sleep during the day just by being awake. And what about what a normal night of sleep looks like? So when you have sleep problems, you have a picture of what you think a perfect night of sleep is going to look like, but you explain that to me that some of the things that I thought would be different would be the same.
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that I love talking about. I think that in today's world, we don't actually have a lot of conversations about how each other's sleep is. I don't really feel like it's something that we talk about a lot. It would be great if we did, but now that I'm in this role, when I tell people that, I get the opportunity to hear about people's sleep. And so firstly, I just like to say it's normal to not have perfect sleep. And everybody has a couple of nights probably over the course of a week that isn't perfect. Natural variation is normal. Lots of things feed into sleep, like stress, or if you've been maybe not as active one day, or you've slept in a bit later one morning and haven't built up as much sleep hunger. So lots of things feed into it, and I don't believe there's anything as perfect sleep. But for that reason, because we don't talk about it a lot, I think we feel like other people sleep perfectly, that a good night's sleep is perhaps head hits the pillow out like a light, wake up in the morning, and you shouldn't have remembered anything from during the night. But that's almost a reality of what sedation would be, which is not sleep. So if we come back to sleep drive, I like to have the analogy of adenosine, or that sleep hunger building up, as having weights building up during the day, a little bit like the analogy of a diver getting into a pool at the start of the night, and they need to have a good amount of sleep weights on their dive belt to fall asleep and dive down to the bottom of the pool. So what does a typical night look like for most people in terms of that analogy of the swimming pool of sleep? Well, we dive into the pool, we've been awake perhaps 16 hours, and we've got 16 weights of sleepiness that help us dive down nice and deep into the pool. And then throughout the night, we have roughly 90-minute cycles of sleep. So we might cycle through 4 to 5 sleep cycles in a night. Of course, that varies, and there's natural variation between the length of the cycles. But the first half of the night, we have a higher proportion of deep sleep. So deep sleep is really important for cellular regeneration, clearing the metabolites in the brain, so that adenosine that's built up when we're awake, releasing growth hormone, repairing muscles and immune system. So it's very restorative and it feels very deep. And then the second half of the night, the cycles have a higher proportion of REM sleep or dream sleep. So it feels a little bit lighter, and you might remember dreams if you wake up. But the important thing to remember is that we all wake between every sleep cycle. It's just that we often don't remember those awakenings if they're quite brief. And if we wake up and it's you sort of roll over and change position and go back to sleep and dive down again into the bottom of the pool, if that awakening is under about 3 minutes, our brain actually erases that memory. So in the morning, we might not remember that we have had lots of awakenings during the night. So even someone that's, say, a good sleeper that sleeps really well most nights, it's quite normal to remember 1 or 2 brief awakenings. Maybe you get up to go to the bathroom, maybe you just change position, remember a dream, and then go back to sleep. So again, that was something that I found really reassuring. And now that I sleep well and I feel well during the day, I'm restored by my sleep. But most nights I would still remember 1 or 2 dreams or light awakenings. But it's how we respond to that awakening that really influences how quickly we fall back to sleep.
Yeah, knowing that has made such a difference in how I look at sleep, and am happy with the good night's sleep that I've had. So thank you for that. Everyone's experience with sleep is so different, as you were just talking to. But what are some of the most common myths around getting a good night's sleep that you come across when you're working with clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we were touching on just before about what normal is and thinking that we need perfect sleep. The other one is also thinking that we need a fixed amount. So this 8-hour sleep myth is quite a big one for me. A lot of people believe that they need a certain number of sleep, or because this 8 hours is put out there as this magic number, that puts quite a lot of pressure on people to feel that that's what they need every single night. So that puts quite a lot of pressure on sleep. And the 8-hour number really just came out of the average being 7 to 9 hours for an adult. And 8 hours is simply that midpoint. Research is really pointing more, probably if there was a number, which I don't really like to put a number on, it's probably more like 7 hours. But in saying that, everybody's different. So there is a lot of individual variation between how much we need. There's also individual variation from night to night. We're not machines, and so some nights we might have been on a big long 6-hour day hike and be a little bit tired, or another day we might have slept well for 3 nights in a row and quite not as tired. So I don't like to put numbers on sleep so much.
Yeah, that was definitely a big one for me, and I think I sit more around that 6 to 7 hours, but still feel like it's a really great sleep and have enough energy through the day. In the past, I probably would have thought that that wasn't enough.
Yeah, we really want to feel good during the day. And it can be quite surprising to realise that sometimes less is more with sleep. Of course, we don't want to be reducing it so that we are sleep deprived, but we also want to prioritise just taking the pressure off. And if we're talking about sleep myths, I guess this leads on quite nicely to the fact that people that are struggling with sleep often feel like more sleep must be the answer. So quite a common thing, and I did this myself. I was so tired, I wasn't sleeping well at all on average. And so my logical brain thought, well, I need more sleep. The best thing I can do is to go to bed early tonight. And you hear this quite a lot on social media, and people saying, just go have an early night. That's the best thing that you can do. But it's a little bit like trying to cast the net wider and try to grab more sleep. And it's a bit of a slippery slope, because over time we might not realise that we're gradually going to bed earlier, but then our night might have not been that good. It might have been quite fragmented, and then we think, I'll sleep in a bit longer. And that bedtime window gets extended and extended. So I think remember talking about the analogy of the pizza dough. And so if you're rolling out your pizza dough to match the size of the board, it's a little bit like sleep. And what happens with that when we try and cast the net wider is that we roll out our pizza dough too thinly and it gets holes in it. Our brains and our bodies are only capable of generating a certain amount of sleep. It's not something that we can just force. And when we do try to expand that window to try and grab or capture more sleep, that's when often it gets a little bit holy and thin. And so, yeah, paradoxically, as you would have found, a really powerful tool of cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, or CBT-I, is to firstly improve sleep quality by squeezing out the wakefulness in the middle of the night. And it can be quite surprising, like you found, that you can feel quite refreshed from less sleep because you're getting better quality sleep.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention that you use cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia. Can you tell us a bit more about how this works?
Yeah, absolutely. So cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia is considered the gold standard treatment for chronic insomnia. So in theory, it should actually be the first line of defence, and GPs and providers should be referring people for CBT-I before sleeping medications, ideally. But there's not enough people trained in CBT-I. It's not funded. So yeah, it's just the options are quite limited. But slowly over time, it is getting more known about, and there are some digital apps and more information out there. So, but what is CBT-I? It is a bit of a mouthful of a word, and it doesn't really describe what it is. Personally, I think it needs a rebrand because it's not really cognitive therapy. It's actually a practical reprogramming of sleep, a bit like a sleep reboot. So the behavioural component is practical tools like sleep scheduling and looking at based on a sleep diary of what's happening for that person. It's very personalised, and then implementing some behavioural daily habits to improve sleep. It also is quite holistic, so it looks at dismantling unhelpful beliefs and anxieties around sleep through this cognitive framework that has come from psychology. And it does look at sleep education, so learning about some of the stuff that we're talking about today in more detail, learning about some sleep hygiene, healthy practices. And I guess for me, it's about helping people learn what actually counts for sleep hygiene and what is actually just almost a placebo and causing extra stress. And then there's also relaxation practices that we can bring in to support. So the reason that it works so well, I think, is because it's multimodal and you're bringing in simple but powerful tools, and it's small consistent changes over time that have a big effect.
Yeah, I certainly was very surprised at the simplicity of it and how impactful it was.
It's hard to convey that because when you're telling people, and I think when you've lived through chronic insomnia or when you're going through that and someone says, you know, we're going to do some sleep scheduling and talk about sleep hygiene and I'm going to teach you things about sleep, you're a bit skeptic. Like, I don't really know how to convey that myself other than say I've been through it and I trust the process and it really does work, but it does take buy-in. And so it is hard to explain how it works so well when it does sound so simple.
Yeah, for me, I really took the buy-in from you. You believed that it was going to work. So your belief is what helped me take action and then see the results in such a short time I had to, yeah.
Yeah, I try to bring the clinical experience and my knowledge in with my lived experience of it, but I also don't want to oversell the dream to people because everybody's different and everyone has different root causes. And yeah, I think also, as you would have found, it's challenging, it's not easy. So I don't want to be offering people the magic wand to solve sleep when it does require work and it's not a quick fix. I mean, your body can respond over a period of weeks, but it's not a quick fix like taking a sleeping tablet. But that really is a band-aid approach. It doesn't solve the issue. And that's why I really value the long-term approach and giving people the skills that they can fall back on and have that knowledge for life.
Yeah, and so you combine CBT-I with resetting the circadian rhythm, which you talked a little bit about earlier. Can you share more about what the circadian rhythm is and how it impacts our sleep?
Yes, absolutely. So I talked earlier about the two sleep processes. We have the sleep drive with the adenosine building up, and then the other sleep process is our body clock or circadian rhythm. CBT-I does address the body clock and circadian rhythm and the fact that you're looking at sleep scheduling and having a regular wake-up time, but it doesn't really use light therapy or chronotherapy as such. So this is where I feel my approach is a little bit different in that I use the framework of CBT-I, but I also implement and include chronotherapy and aim to strengthen and improve the circadian rhythm. So we all have these 24-hour cycles in the body, in our cells, in our organs, and we really have evolved over millions of years. And the one consistent thing that all life on Earth has evolved with is these daily light and dark cycles. And it's only in the last, the Industrial Revolution really, which is just a little tiny blip in evolutionary history, that our light environment has changed and we've become disconnected from that. Not only disconnected, but actually almost flipped. So they say now that most people are indoors about 90% of the day. And when we're indoors, the light environment is very, very dim. Even if we've got indoor lights on or we're in an office and it feels very white and bright, and you can actually get a lux meter. That's how we measure light. You can get them free and download them on your phone. And if you like all that techie, nerdy stuff, then it's quite interesting to do. Because if you look at an office environment or an indoor lounge, it might be 50 or 100 lux. If you go outside, even on a cloudy day, it's 10,000 to up to 100,000 lux. So it's very, very, very dim inside, and we're spending a lot of time inside when normally we have evolved to be out in bright sun and nature. And then in the evening, we have bright white LED lights that we flick on when it's dark, which again is flipped because this is much, much brighter than a natural evening would be. And it's also the spectrum of light too. The LED lights in particular are the white spectrum, very bright, whereas natural candlelight is more of the warm, cozier hues, which is how our circadian rhythm has evolved. The circadian rhythm helps our body anticipate what's coming next, which is where the magic is, I think, because we have so many systems in our body, and when the body can predict, for example, a couple of hours before we wake up in the morning, our blood pressure starts rising, cortisol starts getting released, our body is preparing to wake up even before we know we're going to wake up. And then an hour or so after we wake up, we might have digestive enzymes getting released, which I guess the digestive system is preparing for eating before we're even aware that that's happening, because it knows what's happening, which is why the body loves this regularity. And we can improve sleep a lot through regularity and then through optimizing our light environment.
Yeah, the light was a big one for me. I had heard about using light glasses in the evenings to reduce the light, but not about how important the light is in the morning to get those rhythms and things working.
Yeah, again, it's funny because going back to majoring in the minors, the blue blocking glasses have been found to be not really that essential in sleep. Sure, it's good practice to dim the lights, but there isn't strong evidence for needing those glasses. And yeah, like you say, good sleep starts in the day, and getting that morning sunlight is really important. Also, having a really bright day and spending time outside can help mitigate or reduce your sensitivity to light at night. So when we see screens and lights at nighttime, we'll be less sensitive to those effects if we've had a good bright day to contrast the night.
Are you looking for a way to support the podcast and the planet? Ascent's Ocean Foam Hand and Body Wash has been bringing me so much joy lately. It's not just the fresh East Coast citrusing scent. It's the feeling of supporting a purpose-driven Kiwi business, doing things differently. Patrick, the founder of Ascent, has created something really special, a fully circular refill system that's simple and sustainable. You get a beautiful glass bottle with a durable steel pump designed to last, and when it's time to refill, you can send your empties back for free. It's honestly a no-brainer. And as a bonus, the Ideas That Inspire community gets 10% off the wash set, gift set and duo set with the code IDEAS10OFF. That's IDEAS, the number 10, OFF at ascentrefills.nz, or by using the link in the show notes. If you're ready to ditch single-use plastic and support innovation that's good for people and the planet, Start your buy once, refill forever journey with a scent today. Have you got an idea, goal or dream, but feel stuck on where to start? Let's chat. In a clarity call, I'll help you gain fresh perspectives, feel truly heard, and walk away with a clear path forward. Visit ideasthatinspire.com to book your session and take the first step toward making it happen. It must have been really fascinating to go deep into learning about these different sleep support techniques to heal your own insomnia. What inspired you to start your business, Intuitive Sleep, and why are you so motivated to help others struggling with sleep have success in their own sleep journeys?
My main reason for wanting to get into this is to help other people, because going through my insomnia and thinking back to the hardest parts of that journey, I really, really just want to help people that are stuck in that vicious cycle get out, now that I know that there are tools that are really effective. My main motivation is helping other people get out of that, because I know how hard it is. And at my hardest, I was struggling to work and struggling to look after my kids and get through the day. And every hour of the day felt really long and hard.
Yeah.
So because of that, that's my number one motivation, is sharing that. And the more I learn and the more I read about it, the more I realize how impactful it is for life in general, but also circadian rhythms affecting every organ system. And when I was struggling with my chronic insomnia, I was doing a lot of good things, a lot of healthy things. So I was eating well and focusing a lot on nutrition and doing gut healing protocols and yoga. And those things are all good. But when you don't have this solid foundation of sleep, it was kind of like climbing an uphill battle. And for example, if you're not sleeping well at night, and going back to the circadian rhythms, this is overnight is when the body heals and repairs itself. So the gut lining is repairing overnight in this deep sleep. And if you don't have that solid foundation of sleep, but you're taking all these expensive supplements and eating good food, it's these pillars of health, and sleep being one of the pillars. But I actually now see sleep as the foundation upon what all those other pillars rest on. So getting a solid foundation of healthy quality sleep first, and then building up from there and focusing on nutrition and exercise, for me anyway, has been the way to go.
Thank you for sharing that, Kate. And on that note, I'd love for you to share an easy tip or tool that people in our community could use, maybe even tonight, to help them get a better night's sleep if they struggle with insomnia as well.
I would say that waking up and having a regular, consistent routine would be one of my top sleep tips. I don't really love the term sleep tips, because I am all for a long-term approach that is a journey for people. And it can take a different amount of time, and everybody's different. So I don't really love the term top tip, but I do believe that good sleep starts in the day, and that often we focus on what are the things that I'm doing right before bed. But for a holistic view on sleep, I think we need to look at the 24 hours, and especially, what we're doing in the daytime. So are we waking up at a similar time most days of the week and not different times, weekend to daytime, or wildly different? Are we seeing sunlight in the morning? Are we outdoors? And of course, if we're working, then it can be hard to be outside, but can we grab a lunch break outside or do a quick walk after work? Moving the body, that's another great one. It's like extra coins in the sleep piggy bank. So that's building extra adenosine and helping to promote good quality sleep. So I think that in a nutshell, I would say that good sleep starts in the daytime.
In the daytime, with that waking similar time and then going to bed at the same similar time at the evening.
Yeah, and also noticing your stress during the day, because again, if you are rushing the whole day and your nervous system is pretty frazzled all day, then that can be mirrored in the night. So it's not about just doing your quick 10-minute meditation right before bed, but then being stressed the whole day, because that can again be reflected in the night.
Right. And If you could go back to day one and give yourself a piece of advice, what would that be? Like, what wisdom would you share with someone starting out on a similar path to improve their sleep?
Such a great question. And I know exactly what it would be. And I would say, don't worry. Because once we get on the train of worrying about sleep, then the worry of sleep and the worry of not sleeping becomes the thing that stops us from sleeping. And yeah, I think that can't be understated enough, because it is the driver of chronic insomnia, is this worrying about not sleeping and the fearing of wakefulness during the night. So befriending that wakefulness is kind of like a door to accessing more reliable sleep. And some of these things sound a bit counterintuitive, but if I could go back and tell myself, it would be just don't worry and don't try.
Thank you for that, Kate. If anyone in the community struggles with sleep, where can they connect with you or learn more about working with you, and what does this look like?
Thank you. Yeah, my website is intuitivesleep.co.nz. You can follow me on intuitive.sleep on Instagram. I offer a 30-minute free consultation, so that can be in person or on Zoom, and we can have a chat about what's going on for you and what I can offer to help you. But generally it's a few sessions over a period of weeks and going at your pace and supporting you with your journey with sleep until you get to where you want to be.
Is there anything else that you'd love to share with the community that I've missed, or anything that you think is important that you'd love to share?
Well, so much. I could talk about sleep all day long. People can reach out and ask me questions. I'm always happy to talk to people. But I think overall the message for me would be to not force sleep. It's not something that we can control. We can control setting ourselves up for the likelihood of good sleep and having really healthy sleep habits, like getting sun in the morning, being active, reducing stress. There are lots of things that we can do to support sleep. But then I would say it really is about not forcing sleep and not trying to control something that we can't control. Easier said than done, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me, because I used to go to bed trying to fall asleep and I wasn't tired. And now I stay up later until I am tired. I guess that's what you're saying, isn't it? Don't try and force yourself to go to sleep. What could people do, like if they aren't tired or aren't falling asleep? What are some things that people could do while waiting to be tired and ready for sleep to come?
I always come back to the food analogy, because it's a bit like you wouldn't really sit at the dining table just waiting to be hungry for the next meal and damn it, why aren't I hungry enough? I'm just going to wait and maybe it will come quicker. Similar to sleep. And so I would say not spending too long in bed and going to bed when you are sleepy and not tired is quite a big difference between body fatigue and sleepiness. And fatigue can be caused by a lot of different reasons. It could be stress at work or a lot of exercise. There's so many reasons why we can be fatigued, but sleepiness is very different, and that's more looks like your eyes drooping and you can't read the words on your book. So they're two different things. So generally we want to be going to bed when we're looking for sleepy cues rather than just being tired.
Oh, that's a good reminder. Another big thing that people struggle with is waking during the night and then not being able to go back to sleep. Have you got some advice around different things that people can do to help them get back to sleep?
Two things I would say there is, the first one is coming back to sleep drive. So if you're spending too long a window in bed and you're having long wakeful periods, then you might need a little bit longer awake during the daytime to build up enough sleep weights to fall asleep. Because that sleep drive or that sleep hunger, it doesn't just help us fall asleep at the start of the night, it also helps us stay asleep during the night, and if we do wake up, to fall back to sleep. So that would be probably the first thing. And then the second thing would be knowing that some nighttime awakenings are normal, but when we wake up in the night and the first thing we think is, why am I awake? Oh no, I'm awake. How long have I been awake for? That's really activating in itself, and that tends to fuel the wakefulness. And the next thing I would say is don't look at the clock.
Yeah, good advice.
You can help it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and all the fascinating knowledge that you've shared with us. and tying that back to how that's so important for everyone to have a good night's sleep and for us to feel rested and have energy to be able to go out in the day and be good people and do good things.
One more thing I've just thought of that I'd like to say is that we do want to feel good during the day, and I've talked a bit about having good sleep quality and getting enough sleep helps us to feel rested, and like you say, that helps you to have better performance, to feel more engaged, to have more motivation. And these are all things that we want and aspire to. No one would dispute how good it feels when you've had an amazing sleep. But in terms of the non-trying and befriending wakefulness, another part of unlocking more reliable sleep for me, which has been really, really huge, is accepting whatever happens the next day. Because for me, it was less about the actual wakefulness itself at night, but fearing the consequences of being awake at night the next day. And that was my real fear. It's different for everybody, but I know that it is quite common for a lot of people, is the effect of chronic insomnia is struggling in the day. And that's what we're fearing most. So to really dismantle the chronic insomnia for me was learning to cope regardless of the consequence of a poor night. And the more I can let go of that idea, the less I have a bad night. So like I said, there's no such thing as perfect sleep, and sometimes I'll have something big on the next day or take a little bit longer to fall asleep because perhaps I don't have as much sleep drive, and my amygdala can quickly jump on that and be like, oh, it's taking a bit longer to fall asleep. And as soon as you really want that or start thinking about the consequences the next day, that's what really feeds it and fuels it. So I've got really good at being tired and that's been a way to unlock it, is to accept, and instead of struggling through the day and noticing all the moments that I'm not coping and that it feels hard, I'm trying to pick up and notice the moments where it's not optimal and I'm not feeling my best, but I know that I can cope. And so that's actually giving me a bit more resilience in my coping in all my life now that I use that. And humans have a bit of a negative bias, so it's very easy to, especially when you're tired, to focus on the negative, to focus on how hard it feels. But yeah, I think that's been huge for me, is to be good at being tired.
Thank you for sharing that, Kate. Great piece of advice and something I think a lot of people can relate to. So yeah, I just want to thank you again so much for coming on the show today, and I really appreciate all the information that you've shared with us.
Well, thank you, because people like you that have solved something that was really hard, and it's really rewarding. And so yeah, it's my why, and really grateful to work with you and talk to you today.
If sleep has been a struggle for you, I hope this conversation with Kate gave you something helpful to take away. What really stood out to me is that sleep isn't something we need to force. It's something our body already knows how to do. We just need to create the right conditions and trust that our body will take care of the rest. I honestly thought I tried everything, but working with Kate gave me the tools, support, and mindset shift I needed to finally reset my sleep. The steps were simple, but not always easy, and I know I wouldn't have followed through without her guidance. That's the real value of working with a coach. If you're struggling with sleep and want to learn more or book a free 30-minute consultation with Kate, you'll find all the links in the show notes. Next time on the podcast, I'm joined by Kim Knight, also known as the Kiwi Health Detective. Kim shares her incredible journey from chronic illness to becoming a root cause and lifestyle medicine practitioner. We dive deep into the link between emotions and physical health, how the body stores unresolved feelings, and why emotional intelligence might be the missing piece in your healing journey. Kim also explains how learning to label, welcome, and process our emotions helps us to clear them, which is especially powerful when we're navigating fear or doubt or tough decisions in business and everyday life. I can't wait to share this fascinating conversation with you. Thank you for being part of the Ideas That Inspire community. If today's episode sparked joy or inspiration, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. Because the more people that hear these stories, the more change we can create together. You can join the conversation on Instagram at Ideas That Inspire, where we connect, share, and support each other in living mindfully and making a real impact. You can also find us on YouTube, or visit ideasthatinspire.com to apply to share your story on the podcast, or book a clarity call to take the next step towards your own inspiring idea, goal, or dream. Let's light up the world together, one idea at a time.